Scholes, I mean, obviously we're not legal people, but I mean, what would you think would be a fair punishment if Man City were guilty?
I don't know, Jamie. It's hard to say. Just as long as it is fair, I think that's the right word to use. Obviously, Forest and Everton have had punishments as well, haven't they? So as long as it's along those fair lines, and look, I don't know. Kieran's probably the.
We'll get back to Scholes in just a quick second, but remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D Talks football video hits. And as ever, if something is on your mind, if something is bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, please put it in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments and he's always interested in what is on your mind. Anyway, in this little clip, Scholesy, Cara and some of the fans are going to be discussing the situation with Manchester City and all those charges that have been applied to them or that they are, currently under investigation for. And it seems that the result of this whole debacle is imminent. So what will it be? What's going to happen? Is it going to be a fine? Is it going to be points deduction? What is going to happen? But anyway, here's what the guys have to say, but stick around for after the clip because the Big D is going to be giving his thoughts on this whole situation too. Here they are.
Now that we're talking about Manchester City, I think we're all aware that it feels like the situation we've been talking about for the last, I don't know how many years about Man City's, charges. We're going to get the result one way or another in the next few days or weeks. So, Kieran, we've got you in. Can you tell us where we're at right now and how close is the call to be coming out?
Well, I've been on standby from a few broadcasters for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and my wife's got a suitcase packed because if the verdict comes in, she's moving out. So we don't know. I have spoken to some people high up, and they reckon that only 4 or 5 people in the country know when the verdict's going. So there's lots of IT cases, lots of people saying on WhatsApp groups and so on that it's due out this Friday, next Monday and so on. But nobody knows for sure. When it does come out, I think the big fear is that you get the verdict as to whether they're guilty or innocent of the 115 charges, but you don't get told what the punishment is. That could take later. If you look at some court cases, somebody will be found guilty or not guilty, and then the judge goes away and considers. I think that would really set the cat amongst the pigeons. But in terms of the actual date, I think Pep said that it was going to be in March. Well, we've got to the end of March and no news. So how long, we don't know. And also, you've got to think about the lawyers. They're on the clock. If I'm on, £3,000-5,000 an hour, I'm not going to hurry a decision as to when the result's going to come out.
Do you think it will be before the end of the season, or do you think everybody wants to get it before the end of the season so you know where you are maybe for next season as well?
There's certainly a desire from the Premier League for it to come out because otherwise we've got a hangover over the summer in terms of where does this leave clubs? Because if it comes out in July, for example, and Manchester City are given a 40 or 50 point deduction, then presumably one of Leicester or Ipswich will be saying, well, if that had come out earlier, we would have avoided relegation. So therefore, they might be putting in a legal case. We've seen Burnley recently put in a case against Everton for the points deduction there. They feel that they suffered financially. We've seen both Middlesbrough and Wycombe Wanderers do the same for Derby County when they got a points deduction because it came in too late. And if that does kick off, you've got a huge legal ramifications.
Scholesy, I mean, obviously we're not legal people, but I mean, what would you think would be a fair punishment if Man City were guilty?
I don't know, Jamie. It's hard to say. Just as long as it is fair, I think that's the right word to use. Obviously, Forest and Everton have had punishments as well, haven't they? So as long as it's along those fair lines, and look, I don't know, Kieran's probably all I was saying, I know going back to that, but I'll just say as long as the punishment is fair. Like, I'm not saying it has to be the same as Everton, the same as Forest, but as long as it's fair, even going back that long, then big points. I think it will be points, won't it, Kieran?
It will be. The tariffs that we've seen from the commissions for both Everton and Forest said the way forward. It's no point fining a billionaire owner a few quid. So because there's no disincentive there to misbehave. So if you take a look at if you read the commission reports, and I wouldn't recommend, it's probably about as exciting as watching Brighton versus Forest at the weekend. If you read the commission reports from cover to cover, they both say that these were minor breaches of the rules. And what Manchester City are being accused of is corporate fraud over the period of nearly a decade. So if guilty, you've got to add a 0 to the points deductions that we've seen for Forest and Everton. If not guilty, there's going to be a lot of trouble.
Sorry, Jamie, I was just going to say, they usually frame it as if both sides have won, haven't they? Somehow. Do you think that's likely to happen as well? And there's also there's a lawyer's fees to pay as well, isn't there?
Yeah, if we take a look at the associated party transaction rule, which came out recently, where Manchester City effectively said the Premier League rules are unfair, that was a big victory for Manchester City. But the Premier League have tried to claim that they were the beneficiaries there. We will find out. Ultimately, there's going to be a penalty, and that penalty is going to be decided by the Commission. If it's in the form of points deductions, then it's got to be a victory for the Premier League. I think the one concern that people have is what happens if Manchester City are found innocent of the accusations of inflating money coming into the club and playing players off book, but they've been found guilty of not cooperating with the Premier League, in which case they'll get a fine because that's what UEFA did.
He scored half your goals this year, Liam Delap. So,
Well, that, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that another
you weren't bothered about that when he's a
but...
product of the academy that we've apparently fraudulently made. So there you go.
So you're expecting a big apology from everyone, aren't you, if this ruling goes your way?
Well, at the end of the day, the way I see it, with anything in life, unless something's been proven, I'm not going to have an opinion on it. So
So you've never had an opinion on anything in your life?
Of course not, Jamie. Of course not, Jamie. At the end of the day, there's no verdict. So I just think it's very unfair from other fan bases. They can, you know, in private, speak about how you like, but I just see a lot of pundits and stuff coming out speaking a lot about this. And like Pep said when it all happened, he said City have basically been condemned. Like the reputational damage has already been done. It could come out tomorrow now, City not guilty, and I think everyone would just still stick to the same opinions they've got now. So that's how I feel about it. I know a lot of City fans share the same opinion. If we're found guilty, we're found guilty, and you know we'll hold our hands up. But I just think the damage is already done, regardless of the verdict. I think the damage has already been done.
It's a really funny one, this Manchester City debacle. I mean, it seems to have gone on for far too long. I feel as though if this had been a smaller club, the result would have been done and dusted, and a line would have been drawn under it, a long time ago. But this has been drawn out for so long, and if it's being drawn out for so long, that says to me that something's afoot. Something big is going to happen, and quite right. If Manchester City have been found to be up to no good since 2009, well, I mean, how does that directly contribute to their success on the pitch? So that's what you've got to think about. So if all of these charges have had a direct impact on them winning titles, then one would assume that at the very least asterisks should be put against those names, those titles even. And you could argue that perhaps they should be stripped of those titles. But the man there said that there could be a points deduction and you should add a 0 on, next to the points deduction. Like if they were going to get the same amount of points, compared to say Everton, they should be adding a 0 to what Everton got, for instance. So, I mean, if they got a 10, 12 point deduction, I mean, is that going to make much of a difference? Because they'll still be playing in the Champions League, you know? I mean, what about like during the Calcipoli scandal over there in Italy? You had Juventus, you had AC Milan, up to no good as well. And Juventus got relegated. AC Milan got docked about 20 points and initially kicked out of the Champions League until they were reinstated. And I'm sure Juventus got kicked out of the Champions League as well. And they got stripped of titles. So whether, they were accused of, bribing referees or influencing referees, okay, fair enough. But again, if Manchester City's alleged charges, has had a direct impact on results on the pitch, then their punishment should be parallel to that. So which basically means they should be stripped of titles. Or they should be stripped of title, docked points retrospectively over the course of those seasons that those charges were in. So, if they won the league by 2 points and they were docked 6 points, then that should be amended and that title should be awarded to whoever came second. I mean, a big part of me saying this is because I'm a Man United fan and we'd get another 2 titles. So I'd be happy with that. Ollie and Jose would have gotten a title. So, absolutely. It would be in United's best interests. But I say that tongue in cheek, to be fair. I just want the punishment to fit the crime. That's it. Simple as that. And then they can get it done, draw a line under it, and then crack on for next season. I personally don't have anything against the fact that Manchester City have, invested loads of money, or even if the Sheikh gave them £1 billion to spend on players, that wouldn't bother me in the slightest. Not really, because that kind of thing has kind of spruced up the Premier League over the years. It makes it more interesting and more competitive, because then you had, back in the day it was just United dominating, and people used to talk about Arsenal challenging United. No, they never. Not really. But when Abramovich took over Chelsea, they were real rivals to United. They were a fantastic side, and that was all because of Abramovich's money. But, so Man City doing it, then that's fine too. Who cares? And Newcastle now, apparently they've got the richest owners in world football, but they can't spend any money because the club needs to be generating it. Well, just let them get on with it. If he wants to blow his money on buying players, then that's up to him. But either way, I mean, it should be done and dusted, and it should be done and dusted in sooner rather than later. Because it's been terrible this season, Manchester City, and now we're having to suffer the Scousers winning the league, and never going to hear the end of that. But yeah. But anyway, what do you guys think? Should Manchester City have the book thrown at them? Should they be deducted points? Should they be stripped of titles? Should they get a massive fine, slap on the wrists? Or do you think they're going to get away with it? Because that still could be the case. It could be a case that they pay £100 million fine, which is going to be chump change to the Sheikh, and they're going to get away with maybe a 3-point deduction or something stupid. Who knows? Maybe even a couple of transfer bans. Maybe that's why they spent a lot of money in January, because they were given the heads up that they were going to get a transfer ban for about 2 or 3 seasons. That could be it, That could be it. Spending big in January, transfer ban this summer, transfer ban in January, and perhaps even another transfer ban next summer. That would be interesting to see. But anyway, as ever, the Big D is interested in what you've got to say, so please, thoughts in the comments, and the Big D will see you in the next one.